Hello, welcome back to the channel, and today I'll be presenting the second graphics pack for this channel. The main features of this one, which you probably won't find in other graphics pack, is the massive collection of model renders. Now, I made a video on how you can actually find these yourself, and I'll link that below. But I picked out a bunch that I really liked and I thought would be really good for designs, and placed all 62 of them within this graphics pack. Now, in this video, I'm going to go through each of these folders and give you some idea of how these can be used. And I'll be using Photoshop. Photoshop is a paid software, so it's understandable if you don't own it or you don't want to purchase it. And a great free alternative is Photopea. If you open the file on here, and since the file is almost half a gigabyte in size, it'll probably take some time to open. But if you open it here, everything I'm doing on Photoshop, you're gonna also replicate in Photopea. So without further delay, let's get right into how you can use this graphics pack. Start out with models, pretty self-explanatory. Pop them into banners, posters, however you want to use them. Now, all of these models I left in the attribution to the person who actually rendered it. If, say, you don't want that in there, which obviously you wouldn't, it's going to get in the way of your editing. The lasso tool is a great way to quickly remove that. So I swapped over to the lasso tool on the left. I'm just going to go around this whole thing. Okay, well, my mouse is really broken right now, so it's not working properly. So I'm going to use a rectangular marquee instead. But it'll give you some idea of... Oh my gosh, my mouse is so broken. Oops, wrong layer as well. Make sure you're on the layer and then just go around the lasso tool. As you can see, my mouse is really janky. Should probably buy a new one at this point. Had this one for like 3 years now. Anyway, that's an idea of how you can remove that from your folder. And then to actually drag it into a new file, I'm going to create a new test file as an example. You can either take it and just drag it in. If my mouse isn't broken, you can normally just drag it in and it'll pop in over there. Or you might have to use a rectangular marquee tool, highlight the entire thing, and do Control-C, and then do Control-V. That also works. So yeah, excuse my broken mouse. I'll look into getting that replaced because I am just as annoyed as you probably are. Shapes, again, pretty self-explanatory, just a mix of random shapes. I left them as the colors that they were at. And you'll notice for the shapes, and in general for both models and other assets in this pack, some of them are larger than frame. So you might have to do free transform. In this case, I did Control-T, or you can go to edit, free transform to reduce the size a bit. And you might have to hold shift when resizing to make sure it resizes proportionally. Colors as well, you don't like any of these colors, right click, go to blending options, and you can either do a color overlay or a gradient overlay, whatever you desire. Moving on to particles, again, really self-explanatory, just a bunch of different particles and stuff that you can use. Same thing, to recolor it, right click, blending options, color overlay. Okay, that one, do not do it in that fashion. Actually, it might be the screen just messing it up. Let me try it out real quick. Blending options, color overlay, as their style. Okay, yeah, so for some of these, don't use color overlay. Instead, you might have to use, or you will have to use, color replacement tool, and that will have... Well, for whites and blacks, doesn't really work. So for this one, you're kind of out of luck. But yeah, see, it's not getting the white. But for some of them where the color overlay doesn't work, just use the color replacement tool. Except if it's white or black. White or black always give problems. I never studied color theory. I'm sure there's an actual reason for that. Probably because, was it black absorbs the light, white deflects the light, so you can't really put any other colors in there. I don't know. I didn't study color theory. I have no idea. I'm not sure if that's something people should know, but I don't. For the icons, I left in the Discord and the logos file that I had in the original graphics pack just because This is probably something you want to have. Let's Twitch, Creative Cloud, Twitter, etc. If you open one of these and it has this white border around it, that's from whoever I took it from, or whoever I downloaded it from, the person who created that clip. Then do a really good job of it. You can just remove that by doing a color overlay, and I'll go over everything and clean it up. The edges are a little janky, I admit, but you're not going to really notice that at the size you'd have this file at. Various assets, as it says, it's various assets. There's some shapes here, or various images you can use, and here smoke, brushes, sparkles. When you're dragging these into a new file, keep in mind that some of these, or all of these, especially under sparks and smoke, have a special layer style, is it called layer style? Layer effect applied to it. In this case, these have screen. So just make sure that they keep the screen effects when you drag it into the working file. Let me close out of that. Go into textures. Again, self-explanatory. When using textures, there's a few ways you can go about doing this. I'll drop in a test right here. But say you have this shape here. Gosh darn it, my mouse is just so janky. Can't even drag, it just stops dragging. Oh, I don't know. Okay, I'm just gonna stick it in that corner. I don't realize my mouse is this bad. Anyway, you can clip it on by right click, create clipping mask, or holding Alt and clicking in between. And then you modify these different effects here to just get the texture of the actual image that I've deposited in here for you. I mean, this is one way of doing it. If you actually want the tree texture itself, then of course do so. But this is, I wouldn't say typically how it's used, but it's typically how I use it. I don't really work with other graphical design artists, so I don't know what they do, but this is how I use textures. Though I do also use them in normal sometimes, just maybe I go into image adjustments and adjust some of these, but yeah, that's kind of what I had in mind for the textures. But there's over 40 here for you to mess around with. Patterns, these typically just clip onto a image. So let's say I made that rectangle again, not going to because this mouse is driving me insane, but you'd clip these on and then maybe, well, you definitely would, well, you probably put one of these on there. Hopefully you would. It would look a lot better if you do. But then you also mess around with the opacity. Because it's a pattern, you want it to be kind of there and kind of not there. So you drop the opacity and kind of just have it barely visible. And I have a really good example of that right here at the background. So you can see there's a line pattern going all the way across this backgrounds, which adds a nice little touch to it. So closing out of this, finally color combinations. Again, pretty self-explanatory. You can just sample the colors here, either by holding I on your keyboard if you're in the desktop version of Photoshop, or just Photoshop in general. I'm not sure what the keyboard shortcut is in Photopia. Or just come over to the eyedropper tool itself and just select the color here. Once you have the color selected, you come over to this left side, pop this open, and you have the hex code. And these are all just colors that work really well together. So if you're making a banner or a poster, and you want all the colors to flow well and to guarantee they're flowing well, just go over to one of these color combos and you are good to go. And yeah, other than that, I did consider zipping, and I actually did zip this and upload it, and I only reduced the file size by 100 megabytes, but I figure some people are going to be wary of downloading files from some stranger on YouTube, which is understandable. I'll also be wary. So instead, I just made sure to put up the .psd instead. It's a lot more transparent than some zip file. You don't know what's in there. And it's only a 100 megabyte difference. It's probably a huge difference for some people who have slower connections, but it's more transparent. You'll probably feel safer downloading the file in that fashion. Other than that really marks and ends for this overview of this graphics pack. If you enjoyed, please make sure to like and subscribe. If you don't, please don't say anything. My feelings would be immensely hurt and my day will be ruined. Just kidding. Let me know and I'll make corrections and improvements for the future. And other than that, I hope you have an awesome day.